This is a recent attempt I had in booting a PS2 Mol 30. This unit is based on the 8086 processor, and so it has MCGA video on the built-in on the planar. But watch what happens when I power it on. I get the double beep. Now there is a little bit of scan that shows up on the screen, but on my local screen here, I don't see anything at all. What I'm going to do is, since I kind of know the sequence now, is I'm going to press F1. Okay, and that skewed video that you see, and again, I don't see anything on my local screen, but I'm going to go through, it's changed, and I'm going to go through and press F1 again. Okay, and it is doing diskette seeks. There's no diskette in the drive, nothing to boot from. The hard drive of the machine is also detached from that, from the system, from that interface. So we get a screen now, and there's still nothing on my local screen. But what I'm going to try is I'm going to try just a warm boot by the CTRL-ALT-DELETE key sequence on the keyboard. Okay, and we saw some video that made sense on the screen right as it did the warm boot, but there's now video on my screen. I see what I expect, and after I got the double beep on boot up, and of course it shows that I have the latest Mol 30 BIOS by the square clock on the screen. The earlier versions didn't have that display of a video. So when I go through and I press F1, we do see the automation that the system wants that starter diskette put in the drive, and then to press the F1 key. And so I knew the sequence beforehand. I'd gone through and figured this out of how many times I actually need to go through and press F1 twice. As I said, there's no boot diskette in the drive and no hard drive attached. So when I press F1 again, it goes over to ROM Basic that's built into the system. And that process actually has to complete. In other words, if you just press the F1 key once after not getting into video, the system is not in a state to go through and do a warm boot and restore that MCGA video on the screen. You have to let it complete all the way through to what would be effectively to drop into ROM Basic at the end of this boot cycle. For what the machine is doing, because it doesn't have any local media to boot from, or booting from that starter diskette or other, if you have a hard drive connected as well, for it to do that. And any sequence that boot process requires, you have to go through to where it's fully complete, that the system considers that it's fully booted up before it actually restores that video after a warm boot. So if you go through and do a warm boot and that process is not complete, it comes up the same way with no video or anything else on the screen. You may have seen the sequence in a recent YouTube video by the 8-Bit Guy, where he had an executive workstation that's based entirely on the inner pieces of it are based entirely on the Mol 30, with the latest Mol 30 BIOS. And Dave was confused when he didn't see any video on the screen. The system beeped twice at him, and on one of the systems, one of the 5 systems I believe that they had, he finally got some skewed video that looks like there's other problems with the MCGA controller in that instance. But he on the 4 of the systems, he could not get any video. He'd just get the double beep, and he didn't know to fully go through the sequence on the machine. He was trying to actually boot from a 1.44 based floppy when the diskette drive that's on that executive station, just like the MUL30 is a 720 KB. It requires that disk to be in 720 KB format to be booted and everything else to do that. So this kind of describes what the 8-bit guy was experiencing in this video of going through those systems and just not knowing. And of course, the video went quickly downhill from there to where he further marred the system so badly with the paperclip and other things. But he just hit that basic initial problem like we're experiencing now with some of these Model 30s and Model 25s out there. I'm going to go through and I'm going to try and diagnose a little bit further what's going on. I believe the system is actually turning off the MCGA in an 8-bit register that it has that controls the planar functions like the diskette drive, the hard drive controller, the other aspects of the system that are built in. And I'm going to have it even if it doesn't give me video, and even if I have to press F1 keys on the keyboard, I'm going to have it to where a local boot drive, hard drive, is going to run the program through the autoexec.bat to record what that register value is, even when I don't see video. And doing that through the cold boot cycles and warm boot cycles, every time the machine boots up, it'll read that register and record it into a file, so I can see those results. And from there, I'll know whether the MCGA controller is being disabled or not in those instances. This is something that's come up rather recently. I had never experienced this with any of the Model 25s and Model 30s I've worked on in the decades since they've come out. I had one primary machine where I did add an extra VGA controller into it, and that would have supplanted the MCGA video and made me not experience the same things the same way. It would have disabled the MCGA controller on the planar in that instance, but just as it's doing here, I believe. But the Model 25 and Model 30 are very unique for having that register in their setup. No other system really out there has that functionality where the machines go through and they detect equipment on startup and they configure the motherboard functions based on what it finds on every boot. So it may be something that's happening to the chips as they're aging. It's not time dependent. There's actually not even a real-time clock on the Model 25 at the 8086 level, and nothing, when you go through and power on the system to where it knows, and that thing is that's sort of a time dependent. I've seen this happen more in configuration instances where you've just changed the configuration on the system, like trying to add a hard drive or messing around with the interface in some way, that it starts to behave like this, to where when you power it on initially, it just gives you a double beep, no video, and then you have to go through further to kind of figure out what's going on from there. So I'm just doing some video clips to kind of record this behavior happening. We'll have a more complete video later on. Thank you.